he says yes, he'll do it, but as his lawyer said, what Bill says he does and what he does are two different things. So we were just never able to track him down. I've called the elusive number. I was told by somebody from 20th Century Fox I need to be pretty and blonde. So we're scuppered basically.
So you thought we were doing something for the ages?
I thought, why not mix the real world of psychic research and make a good old-fashioned ghost comedy.
I think we fully believed that we were going to carve out a little niche in film history.
And I just got this wonderful shiver down my back that I was about to do something special.
There's nothing else like it. It's funny and fresh.
Hi,
Here I
Jim.
am.
Hey, Jim.
Hi, Jim. All right. How are you
doing?
guys?
Very well, thank you. Thank you
bad.
for
Oh, I didn't expect a British accent, actually. Surprise, surprise.
We could have gone full Brummy accent for it. Gone, all right, how's you doing? All right. We won't do that.
Either way, it's a pleasant surprise. I like it. So I'm guessing you guys are across the pond in that case.
We are indeed. We are
are.
not allowed to travel to the United States yet.
Yeah.
There's a big cross on the borders.
Well, this is fun for me because I'm at the kind of the birthplace of all these Ghostbusters. I'm in Chicago, so Second City. Yeah.
Oh, Chicago, what a place.
Yes, and so this movie is close to home.
It really is. That's where we filmed Harold.
Yeah, we had to fly to Chicago. We flew from LA to New York and then straight on a plane to Chicago. Interviewed Harold. We got tickets to see the Cubs play at Wrigley Field, which was amazing.
It
really was incredible. And then had to fly straight back to interview Sigourney in New York. It was great, but it was getting to New York was a nightmare. And we had like a really very pleasant cab driver who was just sort of like stressed Eric, like it's like, you've got too many bags. It's like, we know because we're carrying them. And it's only just it was a nightmare, but it's a
story in itself. That was.
Yeah, that's another documentary. It's all the training
to make this film is another documentary.
Yes, the making of the documentary. Yeah. Well, you guys.
Sorry, go on.
No, I'm like, well, you guys certainly put in the work because it shows on screen. 2 hours and 5 minutes or so, or whatever it is. I still felt this could have gone on for a longer time. Did you guys have cutting room material or what? Still with the extended cut, I'd say.
There was, I think, the very, very first assembly. I wasn't really but assembly. I think it was about 5 hours, and then that came down quickly to 4 when you kind of cut out. There's a lot of duplicates, but it was kind of like about 4 hours or so, and then that came to about 3.5, and then that's when we had to get brutal. And it's like, and I originally was like, let's try and get it to 90 minutes. And it was just like, no, it's 2 hours. And then the first sales agent we were with, they wanted it 90 minutes. And it was just like, it's 2 hours. And they were like, and then there was this kind of heated discussion. It was just like, well, if you can tell me where you think it drags or there's those kind of moments where you just don't think it fits, then I'll happily address that. And they just couldn't tell us. It was like, so it's 2 hours.
Well, I'm glad you guys held to your guns because this would have been felt kind of cheated at 90 minutes or so. You just need.
That's how we felt.
Yeah, the extent of it. I'm thinking now too, through all the research you guys done, has there been any stone unturned on the document? Is there anything that we have yet to find out that hasn't been addressed in here? I think it's the most thorough, front to back coverage of the Ghostbusters making that you could have.
And I think as well that what was really important for us was that we told a human interest story. As much as we've piled it full of facts, we hopefully struck the balance that you've got enough of that kind of technical information, but it's not so dense that it's like a science class. So and with hopefully what we've achieved is that people will see that this is a story about the people that made Ghostbusters, and we see the rich personalities and their sense of humor and their passion and their commitment to making the original film. I think that was something that was very important to us, wasn't it?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, because that's what kind of draws you in. Because we could have gone a lot denser. I think like originally, like the Slimer sequence was knocking on 40 minutes, if not longer.
Wow, and that's one of my favorite sequences, by the way. It was amazing how they created him. Like, I had no idea that's all the work that it took, from puppeteers to effects. I mean, it was just unbelievable, to an actual human doing it. It was just, that was fascinating for me, because on screen you kind of see a CGI almost that they would use today. It would have been so much, I guess, easier for them to just CGI it, but the work that they physically had to do, literally, to make him come to life, that was pretty unbelievable.
And I think one of the stories as well that we had to cut out, just because of time, was Stuart Ziff, who was the creature shop supervisor who you see in the film. And he had stepped in for Mark Brian Wilson, who is the puppeteer in Side Slimer, the actor in Side Slimer. And he had put the suit on so that they could continue shooting, because Mark was off ill. And, you know, when they looked at the rushes, it's like, actually, that doesn't work, because you know, an actor has a certain way of moving, and somebody else just can't put on the suit and replicate it. So there's things like that that were gems but we just ran out of time.
Yeah,
it all
really comes about down to flow.
Yeah,
there is points where you think, now it's starting to feel like we've been here too long. So, and you just, and it's that, was it Kill Your Darlings? I think it's called. It's just like, it's really hard taking out some of that, because there's still some like golden nuggets in there. It's just like, but it doesn't fit in. And when you take one bit out, then the next bit doesn't make any sense, and you just think, oh, okay. So you have to take it out, and then it which in some respects works. But I mean, that was Slime, because it's just such a simple, you know, and we use, even like we do in the doc, and like the intro sequence, we use some of that kind of technique, that double exposure stuff. It's like, that's how these kind of things work. And it's like, you know, and it's so effective. And you know, you just, people just, you can't get away with it these days, because everything is CG. Even when you film it practically, you still, you know, manipulate it within a computer. But to do what they were able to do with just, you know, the right lens, the right film stock, the right exposure, and it's just like
a water tank
and stuff like that.
Unbelievable.
Ourselves, but it's just, I loved all of that. You know, years back, we went, while we were making the doc, we went to a screening of The Thing at Hollywood Forever. In LA, a friend of ours took us, and it was amazing. And when we were walking out, there was like two dudes kind of walking in front, and like, yeah, no way, man. It's like, no computer graphics. No way. It's like all wires and stuff. It's like, you have no idea. But it's that kind of thing, and you know,
it's a tactileness, isn't there, about practical effects? You know.
There is something there, you know,
you can't replace it.
You know, Star Wars probably is the best example, like the original trilogy to the special, not special editions to a certain degree, but the prequels. And there is you know, and apart from many other reasons, there's just a different texture. You know, that's it, because it's like the originals, there's the depth, Jabba's palace, it's like all this stuff going on, and you go to something that's been heavily CG'd, and you just, there's no connection.
Kind of one-dimensional, isn't it? Really?
Even though it's so good and flawless these days, there's something about the humanity of something like a puppeteer or whatnot that just can't be replicated, no matter what you do. It's CGI.
Yeah, I mean, I know with the effects in Ghostbusters, because like for me, it's probably a bit, probably thinking too heavily into it, but it's like everything existed that you see in that film, even like a spark that's within the proton streams, or the streams themselves, their cell animation, their explosions that have been filmed and then sort of like, you know, squished down and then kind of moved into within the animation. There's, you know, Slimer, and there's like, you know, Slimer and the subway ghost, all of those kind of things. They all exist in some shape, way, or form in the physical world. Whereas anything else, if it's digital, it's just CG. It just exists on a card or in the computer. It's not something you can pick up and go, blimey, look at this. It's not the same.
And it's not sort of dispelling the artistry that goes into digital effects, because they are artists in their own right. However, it's just different.
Yeah. But maybe just pick up a brush.
You guys traveled the world literally to looking, where the hell is Bill Murray? Why did he dodge this? Because I imagine you guys had everyone here. Did you reach out to him? What was the kind of response? Because I'd imagine he would want to be part of something like this.
It turns out, I think he was under the one rock that we didn't turn over.
Right, because you guys turned literally everything.
And I mean, he did say yes. I mean, we work as members of the press over in the UK. So when we've been at press conferences and he's been there, you know, plugging his latest Wes Anderson film or George Clooney film or whatever, we've been there. And it's actually in the doc, in the credits, where I'm, you know, talking to him on the stage going, Bill, you know, will you please be in our documentary? And he knows about it. He's heard, because we've been contacting his lawyers for years. And, you know, he says, yes, he'll do it. But as his lawyer said, what Bill says he does and what he does are two different things. So we were just never able to track him down. I've called the elusive number. And I was told by somebody from 20th Century Fox I need to be pretty and blonde. So, you know, we're scuppered, basically.
I mean, you had all his co-stars in that. They should have made a phone call too to try to recruit him there. You know, everyone else was on board. So, but still, I mean, I don't think it hinders that. And I appreciate that you guys, you know, even in, there's so much, he feels like he's in it because he's talked about so much, you know, through the clips and everything else. So that was a good way of making it flow, like you guys mentioned too. You know, I want to go back to Harold for a second because, you know, I also wonder, when did you guys start this project? Because it seems like it's been a while. You know, you got to interview him in person. Now, kind of looking back, did he ever get to see any clips of this? I wonder what his take would have been on this, because I just think it came out so cool. And the words that he spoke had a lot of meaning and a lot of things that he said. How much did he know about what this would become, in a sense?
Oh, that's actually, no, I don't think even we knew what it would become. And I mean, he was such a lovely man. Yeah. Really, like, genuinely, there was, you know, there's no airs and graces about him, you know, immediately put us at ease, because as you can imagine, I was getting myself a bit worked up. And we're like, you know, apart from rushing around, but he just straight away just like put you at ease and was just communicative, and we was there with him for about 4 hours in the end, and he was putting meetings back, and we will be a bit longer, just phone up such and such and tell him I'll meet him at whatever time. And he was really nice, and you know, and that is the sad thing, because it's like 7 or 8 people that's passed away since we did the interviews. Wow. And you kind of want them to see what we were able to do. You know, there's a lot of, you know, a weird thing that people used to say to us when we interviewed them. It's just like, if you could just use a little bit of my interview, I'd really appreciate that, because it'd be nice to finally be in something. It's just like, well, of course you will, because why would we go to the effort? And then you find out that people they get interviewed and just dropped. And it was just like, the one thing we sort of like said was, everyone we interview is in the doc, and that's it.
Because they all made a difference too. They all played a part in some way. Even if you're a sound effects person, you were part of something iconic, you know, like the siren or whatever it is that you remember. If you're a fan of this series, it was done by an individual, you know? Yeah.
And I think for us, Harold, he proved to be the backbone of the film, because he provided so much candid information, and he was so honest and authentic, wasn't he? And he, I mean, for us, learning afterwards of his passing, I mean, it was really, really difficult, because you then become the custodian of his story, because he was the last person, we were the last people that he spoke to in any kind of depth about this film. So then you've got this kind of burden of like, we really need to do him justice. And I think for everybody that passed away in the film that didn't get a chance to see it, and that was, you know, the sad, you know, there's been a blessing and a curse that it took 12 years to make our film. But the sad, really sad part is that we just wanted to do these people justice, and they won't be able to see that.
Yeah. But, you know, but they're there, you know, we've
got
them
they
there.
are.
You know, they are immortalized in that kind of a way. It was, you know, I know with Harold, when I found out, I don't think I could go near it, because I mean, I've been editing this thing for, you know, there's so much to take a break from it, because like, we haven't got interviews. You know, we didn't have Dan Aykroyd for 4 years, so there's no point in getting too heavy in the edit, because it's not done. So, you know, you can do a few bits here and there, but at that point I was doing a lot of editing on it and was working on Harold's footage specifically, and you know, his and well, all of them, but him and Richard and Terry, they're all interviews that when you start watching them, you just keep on watching, where you should actually be concentrating and cutting. You're just not. You just keep listening to them, because they've just got this great way with them, and very warm, and you're just engrossed in everything that they said. And then found out he passed away, and I couldn't go near the footage for a couple of days, because it's just like, it really, it's just you become, it's weird, you could become quite close to them, because you're there with them every day, sort of like going over this stuff. And part of the kind of style of the doc was to kind of feel as though you are in the room with them, as if you're, you know, like the photos, not having them all pristine and clean and having a bit scuppered up. It's like somebody's taking the shoebox out and, here you go, have a look at this, and you kind of like handing it around while you're talking to them. And that's the kind of feeling that we wanted to get with the film.
Yeah, you guys really managed it so well. And I don't know, there's like even little tie-ins with kind of the logo in the background everyone seemed to have too. It just seems like it's all so continuous, and they could be in the same space, just in different rooms. That's what I kind of liked about it, that it doesn't look disjointed. It looks very connected, you know, throughout. And like you mentioned, that I totally got that as a viewer, that sense of like, yes, you're almost having like a roundtable discussion, just kind of isolated with everyone else. And that was a very intimate, I think it was an intimate take on it.
You know, that's a huge compliment, and thank you very much, because that's exactly what we were trying to achieve, wasn't it?
Exactly.
So thank you.
No, absolutely. You know, another thing too, it's like when you do, and Claire, you're an interviewer yourself, so you know how to do this. When you interview these individuals, how much you come prepared with questions? At one point, do you just kind of let them talk, you know, and just like, forget about my questions? Because usually as an interview, you kind of know that some things lead to that you can't predict, or you don't even think about asking. Just conversation evolves, and you get all these gems just by letting someone talk, or you know, how often did you guys find yourself, in a sense, having prepared questions, they're like, kind of tossing them out because the conversation became so rich and you were getting content that you maybe didn't even imagine?
Well, that's a really good question, because we definitely always worked from the script, because then because there's certain sort of factual information that Anthony needs to know to be able to make the film cohesive and be able to marry the different interviews together. So we always stayed you know, on the script, but my job as an interviewer is to listen. And so when I could see that they were going into a really interesting story, then, you know, it's my job to kind of coerce a little bit more out of them, and let them talk. I mean, and also, you know, like somebody like Harold, he was giving us loads of time. So
I think he apologized for talking to
he did. I know, carry on. You know, but where somebody like, you know, Dan Aykroyd, in fairness, he's a busy man, so he's jumping from one thing to another, so we only had a small amount of time with him. The same with Sigourney. So I was mindful that I knew what time constraints we had, and so how much I could possibly take a story on a tangent, and how much we needed to kind of keep to the structure of the script.
Yeah,
that's interesting.
It's tricky. I mean, you know, it's like most things, and you'll know yourself, it's just listening to that other person, basically, and sometimes they answer some of those questions that you're about to ask, and sometimes you just need a little bit more about something, and it didn't happen very often. There was odd times it's like, I wish we'd asked more about that, or you actually find something else out from somebody else's interview. It's like, God, I wish we were back with them now, because they could have filled in about. But you know, it's like anything within life, there's so many different layers to things, and you know, and that's it. It's like just making sure there's enough of, and sometimes that same story, because some things, you know, come up. I'm trying to think of something specifically on Ghostbusters 2. I know that one, Mark Siegel, and he would talk about when they were like looking at, like rehearsing Slimer, they would watch Animal House so they can get as many of John Belushi's mannerisms.
That's a really cool fact. Yeah.
Oh, it's quite, and it was always something that it's kind of been spoken about, but never kind of confirmed. And then Dan was talking about that, and he sort of like said, you know, I was right in his line when I heard he died. So that those two interviews could like intercut quite nicely, and we showed like Mark. It was nearly finished. I think we'd nearly completed the edit, and he was in the UK, so we played it in, and he was getting quite emotional through a few parts of it, thankfully through enjoying it rather than thinking, what on earth is this? But he just likes, you know, thank you for doing that, because it's like I tell people that story about, you know, John Belushi and the way we did it, but there's never been any sort of like real sort of like hard evidence, and the fact that you've kind of like put me there with that Dan Aykroyd and joined the two together, just what's the word I'm looking for?
Indemnifies
what he's been saying. So he was just and he was just emotional. So like watching this, it's just like I'm taking straight back all the time. John Bruno, we showed it to him, and he was just like, he was laughing because like, this is exactly how things happened. And you just take that little bit of kind of like, because it is difficult, because sometimes people will tell a story and, after 20, 30 years, that story changes. Your memory just does stuff. So part of your job is just to try and find what that truth is and that narrative. And thankfully, he was able to kind of pull that off without kind of making a right pig's ear of it.
It gotta end on a one note. I mean, it's kind of interesting how everything timed up. You guys have been working for it for over a decade, but we've had two, and well, now it's coming. We're almost on the verge of another Ghostbusters movie, and we've had one, the all-female cast one. We've had a reboot. So, as fans, what do you guys kind of think about? Did you think there would be, by the time you guys put this out, there'd be two potentially Ghostbuster movies and one done by Ivan's son? What's your kind of just impression and take on that?
I think
timing. I
think it's jolly decent of Sony to go make a whole film just to promote our documentary. I mean, you can't ask for that. That's just a give. It's amazing. Just to be here now, so many years later, preparing for a new Ghostbusters film, one that is firmly kind of cemented in the original sort of like either the original film or a follow-on from the second. I'm still not sure how it's going to play out like that. But I just, you just see that stuff. You see the car. It's just, we live in that era now where, Star Wars and all that kind of stuff's coming about. Not always to a great success, but I do have a very do about this. I think Jason Reitman is a first-rate.
He's a phenomenal director. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm very excited about that for sure. But when we started, literally we, it was, I do, as interviews and things in front of the camera and interviewing filmmakers and alike. Anthony's behind the camera, and it was literally a case of let's put our skills together and see if we can make a decent film. And it's just really weird for me now to be on the opposite side being interviewed about my film, because I certainly didn't anticipate becoming a filmmaker, but the journey's been phenomenal. But we literally set out to make a film because we wanted to. I mean, even when we spoke to Harold, they were toying with I think there was a script written by The Office.
A script
the guys that wrote The American Office. So there was talk about it, but to me, this is divine timing.
It really is, because we thought, if there was going to be any kind of like combined thing, we might have missed the boat in 2016 when the Paul Feig film came out, and that was another buzz and a weird time altogether. But now here we are, like X amount of years later, and obviously the pandemic's played its kind of part, and it's taken a little bit longer and stuff. But here we are on the cusp. Let's just hope Bond does really well, which means they won't shut cinemas down and it will be on the cinema and we'll all go and watch it.
You guys did a phenomenal job. As a fan of Ghostbusters, it was like an encyclopedia of knowledge. I had so many things answered and learned about so many things I had no idea about. I just think you can't really do much better than that. And if anyone ever wanted to know any details or secret, this is a guide map for it. So fantastic job, both of you.
Thank you, Jim.
Thank you very much for saying that. It's our pleasure.
Absolutely. Well, hope to catch up. There's a next one coming, right? So
there is a Ghostbusters 2 in the making.
There we go. Can't wait to talk to you guys about that one.
Thank you, Jim. Thanks for supporting us. Take care.
Absolutely. Thank you, Claire. Thank you, Anthony.
Bye.
Bye-bye.